I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the NURBS tools that we have in Softimage XSI, and specifically about lofting. Now, the first thing to mention about lofting in Softimage is that you can apply it as a NURBS creation tool, or also as a polymesh creation tool. So I can loft directly into polymesh if I want to. But for now, I'm just going to use a NURBS set right here. So first of all, I have a whole bunch of curves, and basically what lofting does is it uses these curves to then create a mesh with these as sort of the outlines. Now, because of the way that it works, I need to keep these curves in order of selection. So the best selection tool to use is the freeform tool right here. And I'll just select them along, and it keeps the order in which I've selected them in the tool. And then when I hit Surf Mesh Loft, there we go, and we see, oh dear, something's gone horribly, horribly wrong. Why is that? Because I've actually put in some of the problems that commonly are happen when you're lofting to sort of show how you can get around them. So what we can see is that there's all sorts of strange things happening here, and it's not good at all. So let's just delete that, and let's go look and see what exactly these problems are. So first of all, you'll notice that on all my curves I have these little green spots, and basically if we sort of go close up to these, you'll see what is the red point followed by a green. What that basically shows in which direction this curve is facing. And we can immediately see that there are some that just aren't sort of fitting into the others. So first of all, for example, this one here. Now, basically you really want to align all of your curve boundaries so that then the NURBS surface that's created also has its boundary edge going along a straight line and not trying to adapt between a whole bunch of them. It just makes for a cleaner mesh and less problems. So in order to do that, just simply go into your curve tool, basically modify curve, Shift UV, and select roughly where you want it. If you want to adjust it exactly, you have this slider here to position in space exactly. Next, we notice that this fellow here is pointing the wrong direction. So basically what's happened is this curve is actually inverted. So to correct that, we just simply go to curve, inverse, and it's now pointing the right direction. And finally, we notice this guy here is actually not quite closed. Now, while that's perfectly legal in terms of the lofting, it may create problems in terms of the mesh, or the surface mesh created, as it will have holes in it and that sort of thing. But maybe that's what you intended to. If not, all you have to do is close it, because I don't really want a hole in the arm here. Okay, so let's try that again. So this time with my fixed curves, we'll just grab my tools, go to my freeform tool, or select F9, select these fellows, go to surface, loft. Of course, if you don't select them ahead of time, you can pick them one after the other. And now we see that this is fine, but something's not quite right with the shading. It's all very dark, and it all seems to be things. So either my light's on the wrong side, which it wasn't before, or I've actually have all the curves in the wrong direction. So in order to fix this, I could either go and invert all the curves, or I could simply just inverse the normals on my NURBS surface. And there we see, now we have a fairly nice looking arm here with some big bulgy muscles, right? Not an animator. And what we can now do is we could, for example, go in and reparameterize this, because this is awfully chunky and there's a lot of curves in there that we probably don't need on the surface. That's a lot of detail that may really not be necessary. I didn't actually clean up those curves ahead of time, which I probably should have done. So I could go in, but one other thing is, now maybe I decide that actually I didn't like that curve and I want to redo it. So either I could completely redo my loft, or I could just grab, let's say, another curve here, unhide that, and let's say, okay, I want to add something at the end here. So I could put him down here, right there, and maybe just adjust this in terms of positioning, something like that. And now all I have to do is, instead of re-lofting everything with all my curves, I just can select the loft. Let's close this down here, we don't really need that right now. So I have my loft selected, that's why this is sort of a light green, sort of bluey green color. Go to Edit, go to Operator, and Add Input. So all I can do is just select that fellow, and then it adds it to my loft without having to completely redo everything. So now I have a funnel hand. Yeah. Okay, so let's undo that, because that wasn't that fantastic. Let's just get rid of that. But maybe a different thing that I'd like to do is I decide that actually I want a different curve at some place in the loft. And again, I don't have to completely redo everything. I can just use the substitute input command. So basically, again, I just select my loft, go into here, grab the loft, go to my Edit, Operator, get Substitute Input. Grab this fellow, and it, whoops, adds it there. Oh, I'm sorry, that was completely wrong. Basically, I just substituted the input for the last curve in that case, but what I needed to do is I needed to select from who he's going to actually substitute the input. So I just select the curve on the mesh. And basically, again, just do that, go to operator and substitute input, and it automatically sees which generator we're talking about and substitutes that one. So now I have the other curve on my mesh instead of this one, instead of the lower one, which makes the arm look remarkably strange, but maybe that's what I wanted. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Now, another thing is we have a lot of tools for cleaning up the meshes afterwards if we want to work with, for example, if we want to work with the meshes and it's just really too complicated, we can clean it up, reparameterize it, whatever we want to do. Also, we could just select the curves ahead of time and reparameterize and clean up them, and then my resulting loft will be a lot cleaner as well. So there are a lot more tools in the mesh window, but most of them are fairly self-explanatory. But one thing I'd like to really point out is that the way we work in Softimage exercise, that everything then is relational. So if I change my original curves here, you'll see that the entire loft and the mesh and everything is changed with it, so that we always have this relational system in place. If I want to stop that relation going, all I have to do is just either freeze my modeling or freeze entire, and it will clean that stack back down to the original. So now if I change, for example, a curve, let's just grab a curve here and maybe move some points, you'll see nothing actually happens.